Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Entrepreneur Motivation Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Bello. And today, many of you who are watching on the YouTube video, you probably already know the guest I'm about to introduce. His name is Dan Fleyshman. And Dan, for anyone in my audience who has not met you yet, if you want to go ahead and give your intro, just as long or as detailed as you'd like to go.
Sure, I'll give you the fast forward version. I started my company in high school. 18, we did our first 1 million. 19, we licensed it out for 9.5 million, doing it in the clothing space.
Okay.
23 years old, we launched the product onto across the energy drink market, focusing on zero sugar, zero carb, zero calorie space, and then launching mainstream as well. So we took it public on the stock market when I was 23. Next 4 years, I don't remember. I was just sold into 55,000 retail stores. After that, I started an online poker site. Within 10 months, third biggest poker brand in the world. After that, I decided I was going to start a social media agency and become an angel investor. So I started an agency, invested into 36 different companies. Social media agency is my main focus. We spend around $60 million with influencers for brands, products, and mobile apps. And my main passion is my charity. So we make backpacks for the homeless with 150 emergency supply items inside.
That's awesome. I can't even imagine how you probably have said it so many times on various shows and podcasts that the fact that you can wrap up that level of, accomplishment into like a minute or two, it's pretty impressive.
I try to make a little bit different each time just for fun.
Just to switch things up.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk to you today, just with everything going on. I mean, I've seen you posting a lot on social media. I followed you for a while. I've heard you on several other podcasts as well. I think I've seen you on Secret Entourage and on Andy Frisella's show, MFCEO Project, and more recently on things like the Pomp Show as well on YouTube.
Yep.
So, and I've also jumped in on some of those live calls that you've been doing for elevator nights on Sunday nights. So it's a lot of value that you're adding there. And I think we could talk about all of those things, but I wanted to see if we could also just talk about, with everything going on now, any advice you have for entrepreneurs that are maybe just starting off at this time, or, they were like, okay, I'm going to get started. And then coronavirus and oil and gas prices are going crazy. I'm in Houston, so that's like affecting a lot of people here right now. So what are your thoughts with everything going on, and like, how are you maintaining a cool and level head?
So I'm calm simply because I've been through the storms before.
Uh-huh.
And I realize there's things that I can control and things that I can't, right? Like I can't control the media, so I'm not going to sit and complain about them and fight about them if it's not going to get fixed. You can't fix things that don't want to be fixed. And
Right.
their success is based on the people talking about them and clicking on things. If I can't cure coronavirus itself, I don't make hydroxychloroquine. I don't know how to cure it. I'm not going to sit and try to fix it. I just have to pray and support the people that are trying to fix it. All I can focus on is the things that I can do, and all I can do is help the people around me on what they're trying to do. And so when you start to actually think about the things that you can do practically each day, it'll change your mindset. Instead of watching the news and hearing that the world's exploding, well, the world may be exploding. We may go into major recession. That you can't change that part. All you can change is your situation, your environment, the people around you. And so I focus on that. I've never been busier. Like morning, noon, and night. I'm working, and I'm trying to coordinate everybody together to keep them working. Because if you stop and just actually look around at what the world looks like, it's scary.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's definitely, I was actually talking about that on my story before we jumped on this call, is that if you turn the news on, you're going to be freaked out. But if you stay focused on what actually matters and on what you can control, just like you said, you're going to be able to actually make some positive changes in your life. And I've definitely noticed how busy you've been. You've been posting, creating content, making videos, and you seem to be like a master networker almost, like with the whole, elevator nights and everything. You're pulling together other people's schedules and like getting them all together. So have you always been like a master networker? Have you started, digging the well before you're thirsty for years now? Have you always been that way?
Yeah. So there's a ton of people I network and meet with that I don't actually have anything to do with them for years, if ever. The reason for that is if I can create experiences, events, charity functions, things that they can't pay for, things that they can't buy, it draws them to me in my circle. And most of the time, they just want to meet other people in my circle. So if I can provide those relationships, it stems back from me to them, even if I have no intention or no need for them now or if ever. And by doing that, it just the snowball turns into an avalanche, right?
Right.
Uh, I have a lot of different snowballs going. So hopefully a lot of different avalanches happen. And so the networking thing has just always been a part of my life and how I'm able to get so many deals done and so much stuff happens because you can say any keyword. You're like, oh, I need a trademark attorney. Oh, I've known this guy for 18 years. Oh, I need a warehouse. Oh, this warehouse I've worked with for 10 years. Like
You have
the
somebody for
word you say,
everything.
yes, that's
That's
my actual
awesome.
superpower is the people.
And so how do you manage it? Because I know, I mean, not to sound like crazy, because I know a lot of people as well. And I've heard on the tips before, scroll down to the bottom of your phone, make sure you're engaging with people. But I also want it to be genuine. So do you ever find yourself like overwhelmed with like 100 unread Instagram messages and emails and Facebook messages, LinkedIn?
Yeah, I got over that a year ago. It's
You got
mathematically it wasn't
you got over
mathematically
the overwhelm?
no, like if I look at my phone, I'm at 1150
Oh my gosh, text messages?
that are
Wow.
unread, and
Oh gosh.
I have a 99% of people that I do respond to.
Yeah.
So when you start to do the math, you're like, wait a minute, that means you've had 100,000 messages. That's an I got over the fact that those 1,100 people, if they're sad or mad or wondering, it's not them, it's me. I physically can't, mathematically can't do it.
Right.
And if somebody texts me, hey, how are you? I just don't respond. I physically can't because that 30 seconds doesn't sound like a lot. But when you have 70 of those a day, that's 35 minutes a day of just like, hey, how are you? Again, 35 minutes doesn't sound like a lot times 30. Now you're at 1,000 minutes an hour or a month. What's 1,000 times 12? 12,000 minutes a year of hey, how
Gone.
are you?
Wow.
You why like I got over it emotionally. Like, do I feel bad that I can't say I'm great? How are you? A little, but not as much as giving up 12,000 minutes a year of hey, how are you?
Right. And I think people start to understand that as they get more towards your level where you physically can't. When you're, I guess I have so many friends that aren't even on social media. So maybe they have 100 contacts that they maybe talk to during the year. Hey, mom, yeah, I'm doing great. You can do
Of
some
course,
back and forth. You should do that too, right? Like if mom texts you, you're probably gonna be like, hey, okay,
I'm always responding. Yes.
hey, mom, what's up? But gosh, my parents have been sending me random stuff on WhatsApp, and I haven't used it that often lately. And so sometimes I'm just like, I can't watch this random cat video right now, mom. I'm like focusing on what matters, like what's
Yeah.
my one thing, so to say. How do you with like Pareto principle? Are you a big fan of like focusing on a couple key things and then outsourcing or delegating other tasks?
Yeah, so I try to do everything with group chats. So I
Okay,
run the main vision and I connect everybody together. But then I like to have them on group chats on WhatsApp and text so that I can see it all, scroll up, and I know that they see it compared to email or Trello or other platforms where things can kind of fade away over a few days or they don't have to respond right away. With text, I know you saw it. Like I know you saw it. So
right.
let's get straight to the point. And I have other people inside those texts to add a bit of accountability so that they know that, well, if I texted you and two of our partners are in there and I say, hey, by 12 o'clock Wednesday, make sure that we have this report done. It's way different if I asked you directly versus having the four of us in there.
Right. It's kind of like CCing your boss or something on there, like in a corporate job where they're like, oh, now you're going to respond because I CC'd your boss. Okay. You
Exactly.
ignored my previous 5 emails.
Right.
So with the quarantine and are you finding yourself to be more productive right now? Because I think some people have found to be a little unproductive, getting a little too fridge happy, eating everything in the house, right?
Sure.
How are you maintaining your productivity during this time?
So I have my main schedule of things that I have to get done every day. And then I'm also just not that hard on myself. It's like if sometimes for 2 hours there's nothing booked and I don't have anything to do, I'm not mad at myself if I'm on social media during that time. If
Yeah.
at 7 o'clock at night somebody's phone call canceled and now I'm free for a couple hours, I'm not mad if I want to watch TV. I'm not mad at myself for those things. And I think people try to get frustrated with themselves thinking that they have to have all day and night booked. You don't. However, it's then deciding what do you want to do during those times. Too often people are like, just don't plan anything, or
Right.
they don't get dressed, or they don't know when they're going to eat, or they don't have food. Like they're just not, when there's no schedule or there's no preparation, then nothing happens because it's just, so
Yeah.
I like to make sure that I have things that keep me focused all day so that I can still feel like I'm working.
Yeah. So I guess starting back to how you were, the youngest founder of a publicly traded company, how did you have that ambition at such a young age? Did you always find yourself wanting to do more? Because I think myself, when I was 18, 19, I was playing a lot of video games. I just graduated high school. How did you develop that ambition in yourself?
So I started hustling really young. I was 4 years old at the swap meet with my parents. They were selling Levi's jeans. I was selling baseball cards, my little table. And I did that for 4 years. And then in school, I was selling candy. And then high school, I was working 3 jobs and selling candy. But now I had the teacher selling the candy for me. And I'd pick up the money every Friday. Like I always had that thing. I just like that part of the game, if you will. Um, and so the business side of it, I had no plans of going public. I was just building a business, and we had done 8 figures of revenue. And these investment bankers came to us, and we had not raised money before. Besides a couple of friends that bought little pieces, I'd never raised capital. We didn't need it.
Right.
And so I wanted to launch the energy drink, but to do beverages, you need a lot of capital because you always have to have, it's 4 to 8 weeks lead time. So you always have to have in your warehouse a couple $1 million worth of product to be able to ship to these chain stores and all these distributors. And then when you ship it, they don't pay you for 30 to 60 days. And so you need a lot of money. And so that's when we decided we were going to go public. So it wasn't planned that far in advance. It was, hey, if you really want to scale this thing, here's a lot of access to capital.
That's amazing. So, because I guess at such a young age, you don't know what you don't know yet. And so
Right.
I guess you could have gotten burned. You could have gotten into a bad deal.
I
So
did.
many things could have gone wrong. So you did?
Oh yeah, my investment bankers, they brought in a different investor. The guys came in and gave us 3.75 million, and in one day.
Jeez,
And then somebody calls me, they're like, "Hey, those guys are bad guys." I was like, "I don't even know what
too
you mean."
late.
They're
Yeah.
like, they're like, they gave you a deal. It's called a death spiral. I'm like, what the hell is a death spiral? I'm not in Star Wars. What is this? They're like, they're effectively, if you win, they make a ton of money. If you go broke, they make more money. I was like, what does that
What?
even mean? And so I started researching it. And man, Google's not a big thing back then. This is 15 years ago. I'm
Yeah.
like trying to figure out what the hell's a death spiral. I call my friend in LA who's like the grandfather figure. He was like the king of public companies, had yachts, like the old school legend. And he was like, buddy, this is bad. Like, what do you mean? He's like, you're you're locked into them. So I make this crazy decision. I had extra money because I just did a big deal with Albertsons. I pay them back 4.2 million, $450,000 premium
Wow.
right away. And they're like, no, no, we don't want it. I'm like, no, no, you're gonna take it. You can't turn it down. They're like, no, no, no. I literally overpaid them. I forced them to take the money back, plus this extra money, just to walk away. And so what's funny is, all these years later, those guys end up getting in big trouble. They were bad guys.
Yeah.
They had hundreds of millions of dollars in deals. They were huge. Listen, they were big guys. It wasn't like, it's not necessarily that they were trying to hurt me. It's that they protected themselves so well that it was just by default. By default, they were hurting me. If that makes sense.
And it's
So
just they had so much more experience in terms of doing multiple deals, and this was like your first time, and you were at that age where
yeah,
I mean, like I said, you don't know what you don't know, right?
yeah.
So I didn't even realize that part of your story, that you actually got into that kind of deal. And
I never talk about it because it was like a 24-hour scenario that happened. That
yeah, you signed something before you didn't realize what it was, and then you got some advice, and you're like, oh crap. Yeah. So how do you find these types of mentors? Like the grandfather figure that you had, was it like a
yeah,
relationship you knew from before? Or was that another relationship that you had built?
yeah. So I go to a lot of events. So at that time, I was going to all the clothing conventions,
Okay.
and I met these guys who introduced me to, one of my booths was next door to Calvin Klein, and the Calvin Klein president, he's like, oh yeah, come to New York sometime. And so the day after the convention, I flew to New York. I didn't text him, I didn't call him, I didn't email
You
him.
just
There wasn't,
showed
I
up.
just showed up. And then I get there, and he introduced me to the CEO of DoorDash and the CEO of this and the CEO of that. They introduced me to their lawyers and their investment bankers, and then this guy. And so I met this guy. Well, these are all New York guys. They introduced me to this LA guy, like, oh, you got to meet the grandfather type guy. And so I meet this guy, and we just hit it off. And he just like adopts me basically. And he wasn't the one that took me public. He was just kind of like my advisor type guy, like. And
Yeah.
then like a year or two later, we just became super, super, super close. I would drive up to see him every week or every 2 weeks. Anyways, it all came from going to the events, meeting these clothing executives who introduced me to lawyers and bankers, and it all just kind of
So it all started with you showing up and actually taking initiative, shaking hands, following up. I think that's really important to note here for the audience. So many people are wondering, how do I make that connection? How do I find a mentor? Do I just annoy them, DM them 20 times? And that's not the way. Of course, right now it's a little different because face to face is a little more difficult. But I mean, we're sitting here face to face kind
Yes.
of over a Zoom call, which is pretty amazing these days.
It's so much more efficient, and
Yeah.
it and it forced us to get comfortable with it.
Absolutely. All the people who had been delaying it or using excuses, now we're not driving 20 minutes to go somewhere. And like you said, if an appointment cancels on you, you're not upset because you didn't go drive to a Starbucks or something. You're already at home. So you can just pick up a book or, write a book, whatever you want to do,
Yep.
whatever's next on your task list.
Yep.
So I had a couple of questions that I had written down. One of my friends was like, "Oh, you're talking to Dan. You got to ask these questions."
All right.
Um, so if you're looking to invest in a company right now, what would it be that you're looking for any startups that are out there that are kind of like looking to attract investors? Like what main things would you be looking at?
Sure. I need to see why they're better or why people care. If somebody's trying to start something and the other products are good, what's compelling? And it can't just be price. And so I looked for that. Like when I did the hoverboards, other hoverboards were $1,500 to $1,800. So I made mine for $699.
Nice.
Other hoverboards took 4 to 8 weeks to ship. I did 1 day shipping.
Okay, so you differentiated yourself just with service and price as well, value.
I was not trying to reinvent the wheel. I was making it faster. That's it.
Right.
Make it look cooler. When Costco had 6-foot teddy bears for $300, I made 8-foot teddy bears for $200. It
Huh.
sounds simple, right? But I did that over and over. I just found things like with the beverage, the energy drink, I just wanted to make the best tasting one, not the biggest one. And so I'm looking for something like, why do people care? Why would I've been pitched 200 energy drinks since then, and I've said no every time.
Yeah.
What are you going to do that makes people care? Because now there's flavored drinks. When I came out, there was no flavored drinks. I created that space. I made
Yeah.
cranberry, pineapple, and green tea energy drinks. Back then, it was all black cans and silver cans. I made bright yellow and bright red and bright green cans. Now there's a bazillion of them, and they're all different colors, and they're
Yeah.
everything you can ever dream of. So I would never invest in an energy drink now because I know what it takes, and I know you can't stand out, and you can't beat their price points anymore. Right?
Right.
And so I look at why would people care about what you're trying to do, and then most importantly, I look at the founder. That's what I'm really betting on, because the product I hand you, whether it's watermelons or goldfish, you're going to figure out how to sell it, right? If you're the founder.
Right.
And then you're like, oh, I don't want to sell goldfish anymore. Okay, I'm going to sell paper clips. I'm going to sell the clips that go on bags. I would bet on you as the founder, you're going to figure out how to sell watermelon juice or goldfish or the paper clip itself if you had to pivot.
Right, because if it comes down to the founder and the execution, I mean, if you have a good idea, it doesn't matter if you're not able to fully execute on it correctly.
Exactly.
And to go through all the challenges like the ones that you talked about earlier, how do you pivot and recover from those instead of just giving up and throwing the cards down on the table?
Laying on the floor and crying about it.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people are doing right now is what I've seen. But luckily, and I'm sure in your network you're seeing this too. If you're friends with the right people, you see that they're all, firing on all cylinders. They're not slowing down at all.
Yep.
So another question I had here related to startups or just entrepreneurs in general, with the COVID-19 thing, with us not knowing is everything going to be a little bit different after this? Do you have any suggestions or thoughts on how people can differentiate themselves going forward? I've seen some companies pivoting, starting to make masks, things like that. Any suggestions on how someone can differentiate themselves specifically with where we're at right now, working from home?
They need to realize that we are in a new world. Even when the quarantine's over, we're not all just going to rush back into restaurants the same way. We're not all going to sit on planes 3 to a row anymore. Like
Yeah.
things are different, right? And it's not for the short term. It's going to be 2020 at least, of like just life being different, us thinking about things differently. We're not shaking hands. Like we're not like just think the basics of just like things. Like we're not going to go to a movie theater and all sit next to each other right now.
Yeah.
Right now, that might be all of 2020 or maybe longer. And so when you're pivoting, it's understanding, is your business still relevant in the new world? Like there's some businesses that just are eradicated. They're not coming back. There's some
Right.
businesses that have a wake-up call that they were already month to month or they already were on a thin margin. They shouldn't come back. If your business was month to month and you come back and now instead of doing $2,000 a day in revenue, you're gonna do $1,200. Well, $800 a day and gone lost revenue times 30 is 24 grand a month. That's $300,000 a year. Your
Gone.
business, if your business didn't net 300,000 a year before, or netted 100, now 300 is gone.
It's not gonna make it.
Don't open back up. It's a hard thing to say. I hate saying it, right? Because this shouldn't have happened in this way. However, the reality is we're here, and
Right.
the shouldas and couldas and too lates and change this and doesn't matter, right? The scoreboard is a scoreboard. The reality is we are in a situation where we are not going to be as busy at retail for the rest of the year, flat out. And so if you have a retail store or you have a retail venue or you're in the people space where people have to come to your location, things will be different. However, there are pivots. Now, so many humans are comfortable buying stuff online. So many people are comfortable booking appointments online. So many people are willing to use their credit card and not feel like they're going to get their identity stolen like our grandmas used to. Like,
Yeah.
we're in a different space now. Like Zoom went from 10 million to 200 million users like that.
Crazy.
My grandfather's 93 something years old teaching Yiddish on Zoom. Think about that. Like somebody at that age is using 93 years old is using Zoom.
That's amazing.
Never before, asked me a month ago, he would never even know what Zoom was, right?
Right.
And so we are in a different world and adjusting to that, like adjusting to the fact that more people are at home. When I say less money's out there, the money didn't change. It's just a transfer of wealth, meaning a lot less spending will happen at certain levels and a lot more spending will happen at certain levels. And so adjusting to and being really, really blunt, honest with yourself of what business you're in. If you're a bartender, when you go back to work, it will be less busy. How can you improve? How do you get more people to come by and start doing social media to come by your bar? Like really like think about it. You're a waiter. Before you never wanted to post about your restaurant. Now you post about it a lot because you need more people there and you need them to see you and tip you. And so people just have to think about what things that they can do in whatever category they're in.
Absolutely. And I've seen a few friends that have been in e-commerce or are starting to get into it. They're noticing a lot of increase in just traffic, like you said, people sitting at home buying things, maybe more people buying things online that never used to buy online before as well. So that's definitely something to think of going forward. And then what has changed for you now that live events and stuff have kind of slowed down for a little bit? I know you're doing a lot more Zoom calls, a lot of group calls. I know you've seen a lot of momentum with that as well. So are you planning on just doing that for the near future, just doing all Zoom events and
Yeah,
webinar type stuff as well?
until I'm allowed to have big group events, I'm just going to be doing those Sunday night Zooms for free. The large group events, even when it slowly comes back, I never did them for money. Those are all free anyways.
Yeah.
So if I normally had 1,000, now there's 350. I'm still going to do the live events and space everybody out, or however people want to do it, or wear masks. I don't care. The information is the same, right? My speakers will speak. If the crowd wants to wear masks and gloves, totally fine. I'll provide them. But for now, for the summer, I'll be doing these Sunday night elevator nights for free. Um, and it's just a great way for me to get everybody together. And it's been fun to see who's watching. I have friends that text me that like sold their company for 140 million. Like I haven't missed a single one yet. And then
Yeah.
I go and like the valet guy's like, oh bro, I've been watching every single week. So
It's
everybody,
amazing.
it's fun to hear that from all sides of it. I have big business people tell me that they've been watching every Sunday and like send me screenshots and text me afterwards. So it's fascinating to see the people that we're helping, but also people that are just watching and learning from their peers.
Yeah, I love what you're doing with that. Just because when my friend sent that over to me and I saw like the lineup and the speakers, I was like, man, I know all of these people from before. I follow them all on social media, most of them, and then the ones that I didn't know of before, of course, I'm following them now because just the value that they've been dropping on those calls, and I haven't really quite seen anything like it. And I've been to a lot of live events, and I've been wanting to go to more, but of course, that's slowing down for now. I guess if you want to elaborate a little bit more for whoever's listening to this now, like talk a little bit more about elevator nights, what the goal of it is, and what you guys are doing with like the 100 Million Academy.
Sure. So elevator nights is we've done 38 of those live events, 300 to 1,000 people live events. They're like Shark Tank for entrepreneurs.
Okay.
Totally free. No sponsors, no tickets, no sales on stage. Just a free event. Cost me $300,000 a year to keep it free, but it's my like give back to the entrepreneur community. The online version is every Sunday night at 5 p.m. and it's usually 10 to 12 speakers, 15 to 20 minutes each. So I try to keep it at 3 hours from 5 to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And people will just register for free at elevatornights.com. The Academy is like my real big push that I've been doing a lot of work on for months and months. We hired a lot of people for that, a lot of great staff to build that. 100millionacademy.com is like the Netflix for entrepreneurs. And so that's where I have 150 hours of content on there. We go live every day at 6 p.m., which is cuckoo. And we have 24 speakers and instructors that all have big businesses that, $100 million, $50 million, $200 million type companies that are the instructors in there. And so it's a way for people to be able to watch content 24/7 or watch the daily live calls at 6 p.m. And that's been a big, big focus of mine. It's like 100millionacademy.com is like my main thing, separate from my social media agency.
That's amazing. So you guys are going to be like a resource for entrepreneurs to go learn. I know there's a lot of YouTube channels, and I've talked about this before, where there's just endless amounts of content online where it's sometimes like overwhelming, and people can mistake learning and not taking action for like taking action, if that makes sense, right? They can sit there and watch 10 hours in a row, but if they're not implementing things, then it doesn't really matter. Do you have a suggestion for anyone who signs up for 100 Million Academy, or even if they're going through any courses, like, is there some kind of strategy that makes the most sense? Like watch an hour of videos, implement something. Like, do you have some kind of system for yourself?
Yeah, it's mostly, I take relevant notes. Some people take notes just to take notes.
Yeah.
I take the relevant notes about things that actually apply to my life and execute on them right away. If you push them off, and a lot of times I'll go search it and then leave it on my phone. So I'll go Google search it, or I'll find that account, social media account, or the website or the book that they referenced. If I know I'm going to buy that book on Amazon later, I'll buy it right now.
Right.
If I know I'm going to go register for something, they're like, oh yeah, use ClickFunnels or use Shopify. I'm like, oh, I never heard of Shopify. I'll go sign up right now. Oh, use this thing you want to start a podcast? Go do this. And whatever this is, I go do it right away. Literally right away. Even if I'm not going to start my podcast for a month, I go register and set up now.
Okay.
And so I try to get, especially all the things that are free. I'm not saying go spend a bunch of money and go buy $2,000 thing, but if you're gonna buy a $10 book, go buy it right now, right? If you need podcast mics and things that you're gonna set up and it costs you a couple $100, go buy it now. Like, start doing it.
Right. And I think it's differentiating cost versus investment, right? Because if you're starting a podcast, or if you're creating content, a good webcam and a good podcast mic, I mean, yeah, it costs a couple $100, but how much value can you create from that, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. So do you have any like hobbies or anything that you do right now in your free time? Like, do you play any card games or board games, or?
I mean, my only hobbies have always been poker. I like poker. And then as far as keeping active, my wife makes me go biking, which is fun. So
That's cool. You guys have some trails and stuff around there where you live, or just?
They're closed.
Oh, everything's closed. Can you do like your neighborhood at least, or like everything's closed?
You do the neighborhood. You can't go to any public areas.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I guess where I'm at over in Houston, they're thinking about doing like masks required finally. I know places like LA already have rules like that in place.
Right.
So it's interesting to see just the different phases, I guess, across the country and across the world.
Yeah, we're in Los Angeles. You gotta wear a mask everywhere.
What are your plans for the next 5 to 10 years? Do you have like a vision of where you want to go, like 100 Million Academy with Elevator Nights?
Yeah, Elevator Nights, I just want to scale that for free. So that'll stay that same version. 100millionacademy.com is a paid site, and I want to scale that to be like the Netflix for entrepreneurs. That is my true goal. There's a real staff, a real team. There's already 100+ hours of content. There'll be 1,000 hours of content, but only from people that have done big businesses. And that way you don't have to go filter through like Netflix. There's thousands of shows on there that you just
many bad shows.
Right? Like I wish Netflix just showed me what are the premiere or what are only the 5-star. Like they show you featured stuff, but like I want to know the crap. I want to avoid that stuff.
Right.
And that's the thing is a lot of people are learning from every Tom, Dick, and Harry is making these info products and courses that they regurgitated content from something that they watched. They watch Ty Lopez or Gary Vee say something, and then they make a course about it instead of actually living what Ty and Gary have gone through. Right. These guys have built businesses. You listen to Andy Frisella and Ed Milet, that's because they built 9-figure-a-year businesses. There's a lot of people that regurgitate what Andy and Ed said, and that's not a course. That's not,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so as I'm building 100 Million Academy, that is my 5 to 10 years. That is my big thing. Like, I'm not building it to sell it. Same thing with elevator nights. I'm not building it to sell it. It's free. It's
Yeah.
an
It's like a passion project now, right?
experience. Yeah.
When you're pitching it to other big entrepreneurs and you're recruiting people to join your cause, are you kind of positioning it as an elite thing? Like, hey, like other people are wanting to be a part of that, right? If they're not already.
Sure. I'm pitching mostly that we're just helping people for free,
That's
and
awesome.
my response rate's been 100%. I haven't had anybody say no, and you've seen there's big people on there. Like
Yeah.
it's listen. If we weren't in quarantine, I would not be able to have that success rate, simply because
Right.
of time and interest. Now it's kind of hard to say no to do something on a Sunday night. Like, you're not busy on Sunday night. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, besides being with your family and those types of things. And then I tell them, like, I only need you for 15 minutes. So I have some people that gave me like a hard no, like, hey, Sundays are for my family. I'm like, listen, I totally understand. If you could just escape for 10 minutes, 15 minutes.
That's
I was
awesome.
like, I run it like a machine. You
Yeah,
come
you
on at
do.
6:15, you're done at 6:30. Go. Like, so you can bring your kids on with you. I don't mind. Like, this is very casual. It's just Q&A. And because of that response, everybody's come on.
Yeah, I
So
found that as a really good thing right now. Just the joke is whenever someone's like, "Hey, are you free at this time at this on this day?" I'm like, well, "Let me check my calendar." I have a coach for my real estate stuff, and I was like, it was actually on my calendar, and I was like, "I actually have to replace my toothbrush heads on that day," but it's like, "Yeah, I'm free. We can get on a call. No worries." So, are there any motivational quotes or anything that you really love, like any kind of artwork that you have in your office, or just to brighten up the mood when you're not feeling like doing something?
I have a saying I've said for so many years. I don't know if I made it up or somebody else did, but I've said it for 20 years now. It's don't talk about it, be about it. And there's different versions of that all the time. I've just said the same thing over and over and over so many years because so many people just talk, 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 and all I care about is execution.
Yeah,
Everything else is noise. And so I'm just really, really straightforward about that. That I try to execute right away, all the time, at scale. If I can do that, if I just keep check, 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 then stuff happens.
that's awesome. And I know you said earlier in the interview that you try not to get yourself guilty if you find yourself having like an hour or two to yourself. You don't mind, scrolling through social media and catching up with people. Do you have a certain time that you try to just cut things off and you just say, okay, after this time, it's like me time, meditation, or anything like that? Or is it just kind of like you handle things as they come up? I know you said there was a period where you barely slept in your life. Is that still the case?
No, no, I sleep now. I think no, sleep is a critical thing. And when I was doing that, it was a different time, and people didn't know how important it was at that time.
Yeah.
So I was proud of it, like a badge of honor back then. Now I sleep normal nights, and same thing with Gary Vee. He's passionate about telling people, look, I sleep 7, 8 hours. Um, I'm still closer to 6 hours, but that's just because I want to do stuff, and it's not oh, I got to stay up working. And I'm not working at 1 in the morning anymore unless I have to do calls with somebody overseas. I'm not doing that stuff. But yeah, there's once it's time to like, I flip my phone over because if I keep my phone up, the notification, I'll just stare at it. My phone is always flipped upside down because it's like right now while I'm sitting here with you, otherwise I'd be looking at my phone. So it's always flipped upside down because the notifications just don't stop. And it's coming from so many different humans across the board that sometimes like, whoa, what did he say? Wait, what did she want? What did he say? And
Yeah.
it's like it's just too much all the time, and my brain will look to it all the time, and it'll just keep lighting up. And so when it's nighttime and it's time to like, okay, I'm gonna try to watch this. If I don't flip it upside down, then I won't be able to focus because it'll just keep lighting up, and if it's not lighting up, I'll still think it's lighting up just because it's like a
Yeah.
power, like I just have that thing all day long.
It's like that psychological thing. We've been trained to just every time I see other people do it and I try to be conscientious of when I do it, I try to have more self-control. If I feel my phone vibrate or I hear it ding, people pick up their phone right away and they're looking at it. I try to at least wait a couple seconds. I'm like, no,
Yeah,
I try to fool myself and be like, I'm in control.
yeah.
And then I can feel my eyes just looking over to my phone and be like, who is it? What is it? Is it
Right.
important? Missed calls, texts, and all of that.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I know you're a busy guy. I don't want to keep you too long. I've got a couple appointments I got after this as well. Where can our audience go to learn more about you, about elevator nights and 100 Million Academy? Do you have a couple of URLs you want me to drop in the show notes?
Yeah, so my social media is the same across every channel. It's just at Dan Fleyshman. That's important for you guys as well. Make sure your social media screen name is the same everywhere. Elevatornights.com. That's where you go register for free. It's every Sunday night. And then 100millionacademy.com. That's the Netflix for entrepreneurs. That's gonna be the long mission. There's daily calls and daily giveaways, but also just a lot of content on there.
Yeah, and everybody listening, go check out those resources because I mean, there's so many big names, so much value. Even the ones like I listened to the sales one, the real estate. I am in real estate, but the sales one's very helpful. No matter what it is you do in life, I feel like sales is going to be important. You got to sell yourself. You got to sell your products and your businesses and your ideas going forward. Okay, Dan Fleyshman on all social media handles, elevatornights.com, and then 100millionacademy.com. Awesome. So, what's one takeaway you want the audience to go and implement today, Dan?
Don't talk about it, be about it.
Dang, boom, mic drop. My tagline on here is less dreaming, more doing. So I like to think that it's sort of similar.
Yep.
Just be about it.
Yep.
Well, thanks so much for your time, Dan. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to sharing this message with my audience here soon.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, man.